Yeah.
Because you just built up all of this.
Yep.
You got this audience. You became the face of this game. Then, I mean, maybe it's a little dramatic to say you just left overnight. I don't know how quickly when you started making Fortnite content, are you really breaking away from the COD League and casting? So I'd like you to fill me in, but explain what happened when Fortnite came out.
Yeah. So, I mean, at that point, I was the top caster for Call of Duty alongside Maven and really had a stable and very successful job living in New York City, because 8 months after moving to Burbank, the job moved back to MLG in New York City. And I took another leap. At that point, I kind of had a few leaps in my life that you mentioned where I made these sacrifices. And the next one that came in was taking the leap of no longer being a caster to being a full-time creator. And I viewed it as, I'm loving what I'm doing is casting, but this game Fortnite just came out. I played it the day it came out. I think it was September 26, 2017. I downloaded it. Immediately fell in love with what the game was, the cartoony style of it, the thrill of winning, and the intensity of it. And, with that, I would finish casting, or when I was casting at events, all I would think about was streaming Fortnite. When I would get home, all I'd want to do is play Fortnite. The thing that starts any streamer with being successful is being passionate and having fun with what you're doing. And I was finding that my fun and enjoyment of Call of Duty was dwindling, because at that time it was Call of Duty World War II, and it was just the most depressing and horrible Call of Duty game ever. And
it looks so. It
hurts
to watch. Right?
Oh, dude, I was commentating Ardennes Forest CTF, and it's like a 20-minute CTF would happen, and then like it would end in a tie, and we have to replay the whole map. And like one Ardennes Forest would take like 35 minutes to cast. And
I don't even know what that map is. That's how bad.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
And dreary with snows and trees. That's it.
Yeah.
And I remember just being like, I would love to try to push this streaming thing more. I think I had 1,000 subs on Twitch, and an opportunity had come up where OpTic at the time was kind of when Hector had his whole issues with OpTic. One of the things that Hector and I think them were agreed on was like, let's try to bring in Jack as a creator. And I joined OpTic, and they had, or they had offered me to join OpTic with still my MLG salary, be in their videos, and just take a leap with them. Like, come down to Texas. We'll pay for your living. You'll do this full time and help us keep making OpTic be great, or be a fresh face in OpTic. And it was always a dream.
While you're still working at MLG,
I would have left MLG to do that. And for me, being part of OpTic was the dream. And so I had a lot of tough nights thinking about it for a couple of weeks, and then I told Maven about it. When I told Maven, who was the co-caster with me, my best friend at the time, we were living together, and when I told him the details of it, he was like, I will hate you forever if you don't do this. Like, this is the greatest opportunity you could ask for. And once I heard that, I knew it was kind of time to take the leap. And one of the biggest blessings that could happen was when I went in, there was like Miami or something was like an event 2 weeks after I was telling, or like 6 weeks or something. Basically, there was a timeline where it was like, you give people 2 week notice.
Yeah.
I went in and told like the boss at MLG at that time, I'll finish out this whole stage, like 6 weeks, and then I'm gonna go and join OpTic. And I don't know what it was at that time. Maybe it was a frustration. I don't know what, but I basically got told like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. Don't even come to the event in 2 weeks. And I was like, for a second, I was like, I'm kind of taken back by that. Like, I was gonna give them 6 weeks of like heads up.
Yeah.
But it was the best thing that could happen, because I'm like, I was freed up to get into Fortnite right as it was about to hit like season 3, and it was about to just go nuclear, or the end of season 2 and kind of go nuts. I think it was season 3. So I moved down to Texas, had about 1,000 subs, shared with my audience the news, went live, and it was my full-time thing. And at that point I had 60,000 subs on YouTube, and I was like, I'm going for this. And went down there, hired Swappa, dropped a merch drop, and we just went for it.
So do you think that your boss at MLG, was that like similar to Maven's reaction? Do you think it was something similar where he was like, this is what's best for you? Or do you think it was more of like an angry thing?
It's been so long now that the only thing that I really remember is being like a little bit taken back of like, wow, they're just sort of like, don't even worry about it. Like, and in that time, what I remember is it not being like no, we want what's best for you.
Yeah.
Take
the reason I'm asking, because OpTic was the biggest team at the time.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, that's an interesting leap to make from one of your casters casting the biggest team to join the team.
Yeah.
I mean, there's many ways to look at that. I mean,
no, I definitely, I took it as like a bit of a slight at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's I mean, from a caster's perspective, I can't imagine you really ever expected to ever join OpTic.
No.
It's like you're casting Scump and Nade and
100%.
Merc and maybe in Black Ops 2 times, and the other dynasties and all these teams, and to go from that to joining the team must have been an insane jump. So what was that like? How did they ask you? I know you mentioned you kind of you breezed over it, but I'm sure, what was that like when they're like, you want to join OpTic?
Well, Reed from Night Media was actually at OpTic at that time. Reed was distribution manager for years. Yeah, so he was actually at OpTic at that time, and he was one I was doing the calls with. He was incredibly understanding of my situation, wanted me to be comfortable. And I remember having like a slight disagreement over like, I think it was like $10,000 that I wanted for a certain thing or something like that. And Reed was one of the ones that was just kind of like, Jack, I love you, bro. I'm excited for your future. But like, if this is enough to make you not take this leap now, like he's like, you could be having $250,000 months in the future. And I was like, this guy's out of his damn mind, like $250,000 months. And then I remember when I had my first $250,000 month, I was like, holy, he was right. And I can't believe I almost didn't take this leap because I was arguing over something like that. Like I just had to go for it. So they'd offered it to me and I moved down to the apartment complex where everyone was. They had a place for me there. And in that year I was part of OpTic, the 9 months I was part of OpTic prior to joining 100 Thieves, because OpTic kind of had their own issue, and I'm sure you had the Hector episode and he went down that whole rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I landed joining OpTic, and in the time I flew, all the OpTic members that I was excited to be part of blacked out all their social medias in protest to the new owners of OpTic, threatening to drop the Call of Duty team, if I'm not mistaken it was, or the Halo team.
So you joined at like the worst time.
The worst time.
It's the same thing for a lot of FaZe members. I literally feel bad for some FaZe members that joined. I'm just like, dude, you just joined it's just bad time. It's just bad luck. Bad time. But you made content with Hex.
I did, yeah. Because it wasn't, certain things got settled and content kept going. But I remember my first night I actually teared up. Like I got there and I called my mom and I was like, did I just make the worst mistake ever? OpTic's like, falling apart.
Yeah.
And I then learned the severity over the next few months that I'm sure Hector talked about and where he was at. And I think I remember seeing a clip of him being like, I was almost just out fully, And when I heard that, I knew, I was just at the start for me. And every month was an exponential growth. And I was like, the biggest kind of black hole in my life at that time was like the situation of OpTic.
And you're in a different state in Texas.
And I'm in Texas, which I hated being in Texas, and a place that I never want to go back to from a living perspective. It just sucked the soul out of me.
Really?
That from my end, I was like, man, it just became apparent that I needed to figure out what my next avenue was and at that time, Matt had already approached me prior to joining OpTic, prior to even growing in Fortnite, to join 100 Thieves, or right at the start of me starting with Fortnite, to join 100 Thieves. But at that time, Matt didn't really know what 100 Thieves was going to be, and I didn't really know what I was going to be.
Yeah.
So at this time now, I'm already on this upward trajectory. I knew I wanted to get out to LA. There were so many opportunities out in LA. Nadeshot was really starting to catch a stride with the 100 Thieves stuff. They obviously had the house. I moved to OpTic in March 2018, and then was fully living in the 100 Thieves house in March 2019.
Wow. So you left. You said you were OpTic for 9 months. So
I was in OpTic for about 9 months. The final 3 months of it was out of OpTic, and thankfully, the people at OpTic at the time, I've always been the type in work, and I'm sure you feel this way too. I always want the people I work with, no matter if I see them for one day, if they're freelance, full-time job, worked them for years, I want them always to be like, wow, I enjoyed being around him, I enjoyed working with him, and I would love to work with him in the future. And even when OpTic was in shambles with Hector and the OG OpTic side and the new ownership, I tried to really bridge as much as I could. I really know I put my best foot forward to try to help salvage what I could. But the relationships were just too far apart. But with that, I think the people at OpTic at the time recognized that too, and like didn't penalize me for leaving the apartment early, or didn't charge me this and paid me out for certain things there. And so I'm very grateful for that, because that helped make that transition a lot easier. But yeah, March was living in the 100 Thieves house, not part of 100 Thieves yet. And then May announced us in 100 Thieves.
So just on your tail end of just actually your experience in OpTic. So you joined, even saying you joined through speaking to other people at the company. Yeah. Because again, like I'm drawing parallels to FaZe, right? There's people that joined FaZe that literally didn't speak. Like even Your Rage, right? When Your Rage was one of the few FaZe members remaining, one of the biggest FaZe members, right? Yeah. When he joined FaZe, he joined through conversations with the corporate side. Like he didn't talk to myself, Banks, Tom. Like he was someone who wanted to recruit after the reboot, but they ended up recruiting him, through speaking to his manager, like without us. Like for example, right? There's some people that joined. Was that how your route was? Did you not speak to Hex? Did you not speak to the other guys? Like when you
no. I'm like, Hector was very excited for me to be part of OpTic, and same with all the guys there. I think I didn't have a full understanding of where the situation was. Yeah. Like if I joined OpTic and Hector was at the helm, and OpTic is really what it is even now and what it's built back to, I don't think I would have never left, actually. Yeah. Like to be completely honest. If I went down there and, I remember so vividly going to this Thai restaurant Hector loves and having this lunch, and we were talking about like the future of OpTic, and Hector like just came in and blatantly was like, in the next 2 months I could be just fully out. Like I'm probably going to be fully out. And he was like so done with it. And I remember in that moment I was like, I can no longer, this is not what I came down here for. And that was a few months after being there. Yeah. Or maybe 5 months after being there. And I knew something had to change. Hector's one of my boys. I was texting with him this week. I love Hector like a brother. Yeah. Have no issue with Hector. Never did. But at that time, even Hector didn't know what OpTic was going to be with him and where he was at.
And everything changes. For anyone that may be listening, thinking like, why would he not tell you that? Or like, because we were in the same position where there's 1 week where I'm like, okay, everything looks good. The next week, like same thing. I feel like I might not even be in phase.
Yeah.
Everything happens really fast and changes really quickly, especially with these. What's going on with him? He was in a really rough spot. So I don't think, no one should think, no one should think that he,
I don't have. I experienced it.
Yeah,
and didn't think it for a
No, I
for
know.
a second.
No, not you. I know, of course. But I'm just saying because it could be like, okay, well, why did you even join in the first place? But things move. Some things just go very quick, and you don't really have a hand on what's going on. But
100%.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. I can see what I know what that energy feels like firsthand, right? Of like you're probably excited, you want to see all your friends and whatever, but everyone's just kind of checked out mentally, and it's just this weird vibe.
I mean, if you went back to that day and or that time, and if FaZe came to me with that same offer and opportunity, I would have joined FaZe. I loved what you guys were doing. I loved what obviously the OpTic guys were doing. One of my most famous Black Ops 3 clips is I got sent. You guys had sent me the still my favorite to this day piece of FaZe merchandise ever. That like white jacket with the blue, yellow, and red sleeves with the FaZe logo. And I have a clip on the snowy map. I forget what it's called. No, not Fringe. And I just go, no, FaZe the F up. And I run and slide past this hallway of the bomb site. And the guy's like planting the bomb or like head glitching the bomb. And as I just slide past, I just turn, no scope him. And I'm like, oh my God. I fall out of my chair. So,
that's awesome.
So yeah, I mean, but then with what Matt was doing with 100 Thieves, I mean, to me, it was like, I felt it. And to this day, it's been one of the most life-changing decisions I've made,
So again, big decision after big decision.